The last time we met, we had done an intense episode on the topic of charity. And I wanted to lighten up things a bit this time. And that's why I'm going to discuss a ritual practice in today's video. Usually, topics surrounding ritual practices are intriguing and they also are a bit easier on the head. As I have said earlier on this channel, ritual practices are many a time symbolic in nature. They give richness to create a tradition and develop an identity that is so important to help build a community. In today's video though, we are going to discuss a topic that is both symbolic but also has a very deep meaning. We are going to discuss the very common practice in many Hindu households and temples called Pradakshina, or the action of going around a deity while offering a prayer, as many of you would have seen in a temple. Let us understand the meaning of this practice called Pradakshina. And why does one go around in a clockwise manner only when they are doing Pradakshina? Let us also decode the mystery behind the number of times you have to go around in a Pradakshina. Okay, with that said, let us get into specifics. The term Pradakshina means moving forward to the right. And when you are moving forward to the right and going around the deity, you're doing so in a clockwise manner. Why only clockwise and why not in any other direction? Here, we need to go a bit deeper into the fundamentals of both science and spirituality. Remember, the Upanishads and the Gita have a lot of linkage to science aspects as well. And when we look at the science and spirituality lens, we have to look at the basics of even why our time clocks run clockwise. Through this combined lens of science and spirituality, we can then come to the conclusion as to why Pradakshina is done in the clockwise direction and also the number of times you need to do Pradakshina. You have to be patient a bit with me as I peel off this layer. You see, with the earth moving from west to east and the sun rising in the east, it means the eastern part of our world or eastern part of the day has to be earlier. On the equator, the sun rises due east and sets due west, which means as you go further up north, the arc of the sun takes a shape and goes further behind us in the south. Meaning that as you walk north from the equator, the sun goes down behind you, and that is south. In other words, in the northern hemisphere, when you are facing the sun, you will never face north. In the southern hemisphere, it is exact opposite. Now take a sundial or that piece of equipment where all the hours are laid flat on the ground with a stick popping up in the center. As the sun rises up the east, then the center stick casts a shadow. And you will notice that that shadow keeps moving clockwise. So in essence, you have a sundial that keeps moving in a clockwise direction. Precisely the reason why even clocks of today are designed to move the right or clockwise, because the concept was built on the sundial and the movement of the sun. In many ways, this is also the reason for the claim that civilization started in the northern hemisphere. As if it was in the southern hemisphere. If it had started in the southern hemisphere, we might have ended up seeing our clocks going counterclockwise. So civilization by nature is accustomed to follow a clockwise manner following the sun. Our spiritual texts placed a lot of importance to this aspect of the sun and the many ways this visible form of divinity with its glory and magnificent presence moves through the day. To offer prayers to a deity considered to be a representation of divinity, the same concept of following the sun or clockwise was adopted. Therefore, in the approach of Pradakshina, like the shadow of the sundial moving clockwise, when we go around the deity to offer our prayers, we also go clockwise. So now you know why we got the clockwise direction, because we follow the shadow of the sun. But why go around at all a deity? The reason you go in a circular manner around the deity is to acknowledge that it is the supreme energy in the center and holds us all. And our going around in a clockwise manner is an oblation to that supreme energy. Let's get to the next question then. How many times do you have to go around the deity? In other words, how many rounds should you be making? Well, there isn't any hard or fast rule, neither do the Gita or the Upanishads or any other book give you that guidance. But many use the action of Pradakshina as a trigger for laser focusing their attention, remembering the name of the deity and shutting down all other worldly distractions. To this end, individuals do Pradakshina with little steps, meaning the heel of one foot touching the toe of the other, and they keep moving in that direction. Many use their entire body and roll forward on the ground in a clockwise direction. And many kneel and move forward. All of these things is an individual belief and the faith they have in the power of the deity they are circumambulating. From a spiritual perspective though, the recommended number of rounds of Pradakshina is either 1 or 3. The 1 Pradakshina represents that you have completely surrendered to the supreme energy or divinity, and your focus is only on righteous action and not the outcome. And going around the deity once is a reaffirmation of this aspect. Of course, it is meaningful only if you have truly surrendered in that manner that I described, and then you make that round. The other more common approach is to go around the deity in a clockwise manner in around 3 times. As you're taking the first round, the expectation is that you're leaving acts of lethargy, procrastination, ill will, and jealousy. Then as you make the second round, the expectation is that you're leaving acts of aggression, hate, and greed. And as you do the third round, the expectation is that you're committing to be responsible for your actions, tilting your focus towards actions and not necessarily get tied to the outcome. After you do the 1 round or the 3 rounds, it is recommended that you reinforce the faith of surrender, of letting go of the outcome through the utterance of the verse given by Krishna in chapter 18, verse 66, which states that you're giving up the outcomes of all actions and reposing faith in the supreme energy or divinity. And that action alone of performing a righteous action, of giving up, is the one that matters to be in a liberated state of peace. Of course, if you like to do more than 3 rounds, that is your personal choice. The key here is not quantity, but the focus and the intent you have in each circumambulation around the deity. If more than 3 rounds help you stay focused, go for it. In my view, individuals who do more than 3 rounds definitely can leverage that to become a vehicle for discipline. So now you understand why you go in a clockwise direction, that's because you follow the shadow of a sun in the northern hemisphere, because that's where civilization started. And our ancestors and tradition followed that shadow of the sun, the center stick on the sundial that moves clockwise. And we also looked at how many rounds of Pradakshina does it matter and what is the recommended way. And more importantly, we also looked at why even do a Pradakshina. I strongly believe, and I personally believe, doing Pradakshina is a refresher on a daily basis. It's a refresher to make sure that we are focused on those things that help us perform righteous action and surrender the outcome. And that means you either do it once or you do it 3 times. And if you do more than that, absolutely, if it helps you stay focused, go for it. Hope this helps. I'll talk to you soon. Till then, stay blessed.